One of our top rated shows is none other than Timeshare, Solution or Surrender. And as I was just telling Irene before, and she's doing some amazing work. She's definitely been involved in this for a number of years and has definitely been doing some great work and everything. But as I was just telling her before, this whole notion of being a activist really resonates with yours truly. And I'm one of the producers here on the Pod TV network because I was actually raised in a little small town called Warrenton, which was one of the founders of the environmental justice movement. So some people will remember the chemicals that used to be dumped in the poor neighborhoods and all along those lines. So I was definitely there. And my parents, who had a radio station at that time, were actually interviewing people that were much like Irene. They were doing some great activism work and all in that space. As a matter of fact, one of our family friends, they're doing a documentary on her, Jerry Ann Johnson, because she is a activist even to this day and everything, and is also a quilter and all along those lines. So they're doing a documentary on her. My dad actually got a chance to go see some of the trailers, and the documentary will be done later, but she was part of that whole movement about environmental justice and all along those lines. So definitely the work that you are doing in this activism space is very important, and I'm always glad to support fellow activists as well. So definitely you are doing some amazing work, and I look forward to hearing your conversation with these amazing people that you have gathered to talk about this very important issue, because too many people are being scammed one way or another, and y'all are definitely taking it to the timeshare industry, and we greatly appreciate what you are doing in terms of your work here. So I'm going to get off and let you take over, but Irene, I just have a great deal of respect for you and all of the work that you are doing, so I definitely appreciate you.
Thank you, and we certainly appreciate this show. And I'd like to meet your mother sometime, Mark, because we have the same birthday. So anyway, we're happy to have our show today, and we have one thing I always have a problem with: victim blaming. So I see people post on Facebook that, oh, they just should make the best of it and learn how to use their points. Well, two of our guests today have been timeshare members for over 20 years. So I'm going to start with someone who is not a long time timeshare owner, but he is in a situation that is just heartbreaking to many of us. So I am going to introduce Andrew to the stage. Andrew has been our guest in the past, but I really like the idea of this show. It's almost like a reality show because these are fluid situations. And we have what I call a developer engineered rental scam. And one of the things we want to do is we want to say that it's not just a Westgate problem or a Wyndham problem, it's also an industry problem. So that is why I asked Tom Gwynn to be on the show today. Hi, Tom. And Tom fell victim to a Wyndham sales agent that said that he was should buy some more points to rent. And both Andrew and Tom have talked about what happened to them in the past. So what we're going to do is we have kind of a strategy that we're going to talk about today. And so I'm going to add to the screen Sheila Brush, who is our TARTA board president. So we have Andrew is in Utah, Tom is in Florida with me, fellow Floridian, and Sheila is in New York. And we also have some members of the team, two members that would have liked to have been here today, that are going to help us with legislative outreach. Now, Tom and I were talking before the show about an interesting conversation that he had with his state representative, Tom Leake, I believe you said. Tom, could you lead us off by briefly telling us the short version of after, I think, 20 years of being a happy Wyndham owner, you're now left with more points than you can really afford, and how that happened, and what you gleaned from talking to a real state representative.
I had been a member of, going back as far as Fairfield prior to Wyndham's purchase. And we were happy with the product, very happy. Starting in about 2015, 2018, you need more points. You're not going to be able to get what you want. You need more points. You need more points. So we added until this 2021, when you're so close, you've got to join the founders level. It will open up access to everything you need. You should be renting your points to defray your costs. I'll even present you to somebody, refer you to somebody that will rent the points for you and take the burden off of you. Okay, we did it. Large sum of money. Rented points successfully the first year. Did nothing but offset a percentage of cost. You could never make money on it if you tried. But in January of 2023, received a cease and desist letter and was told by a Wyndham agent that if you continue, we will cancel people's vacations while they're in travel. That's exactly what they told me. So we could never do that to people. So run forward. Recently, I had contacted Tom Leake's office. He's a state representative, also running for office. So I thought it was a good time, um, and explained what had gone on. And I was told by someone in his office that the law had been changed as of 2023, and this was the law. And reading the law, the bar for proving your the misuse is so high that it's totally unattainable. So I went back at the office and told them, I said, Mr. Leake is a long standing attorney. I said, attorneys don't make mistakes like that. I said, this was left open and the bar was placed so high. I said, it was done intentionally. Well, we're not going to do anything until the next legislative session. So that was where my contact ended there. Uh, I don't, I'm sure Mr. Leake will get reelected, but as I said, it's not dead there. But that's where we are with those two.
And I only learned about this today, so being a Floridian myself, I'm happy. And your background, Tom, if I remember, you spent 23 years with the Baltimore County Police Department.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, what chance has the vulnerable? So there's three things we want to lobby for. And TARTA was founded in 2019. It was suggested by a lobbyist. So we are a 501c4, meaning donations are not tax deductible because we want to take a political position. And so the Florida Attorney General, she pats herself on the back for helping timeshare members that have been preyed upon by listing agencies that will call you and say you found a buyer, but she will not pursue the developers that are the root of the problem. So, Sheila, can you give us a history of what you have been going through with Club Exploria? So right now we have the rental scam issue, and then we have another very important issue is the lack of a secondary market.
Yes. We've owned Club Exploria for a few years. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I came down with beginnings of Parkinson's, and so I can't find a place of theirs that you don't have to climb stairs. And so I first reached out to Club Exploria. And that's the way we try to do is reach out to the company. And they said, no, they wouldn't take it back. There's no way that you just have to find a way to use it. And so then after that, I reached out to the Florida Attorney General. And of course, you get a standard little letter from them. And they tell you that they you have to go through the DBPR. I'm very familiar with them. And so I sent everything, I filled out all the forms, did all that with them, and they reached out to Club Exploria, and we went back and forth a few times, and Club Exploria said, well, she just bought something with them in 2021. And I'm like, no, I didn't buy anything. I rescinded something in 2021. So then they still said, well, I bought something. I said, well, I have all the paperwork. So I had to send that to the DBPR. And then they sent it to them and they realized that I had rescinded, but they were saying I could use RCI. I said, no, I have RCI with something else. I don't need RCI with you. Anyway, it's just a hassle back and forth. I
But
also reached
wait
out.
a minute, you have a new reason to go to the Florida Attorney General. Because in the, what she had said is the Florida Attorney General has, let's see, I have it right here. The Florida Attorney General expresses concern about telemarketing companies, that the Attorney General's office protects timeshare owners by investigating the business practices of telemarketing companies that market their advertising services to timeshare owners interested in selling or renting their timeshare interests. You were referred.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's where you can go back now and say, hey, Mrs. Moody, you
Yeah.
said that you should not be able to, that you want to protect people that are duped by listing companies. What is shocking is the timeshare industry lobby, ARDA, the American Resort Development Association,
Hmm.
they actually refer to timeshares only. And I believe you said that Club Exploria referred you to timeshares only. And do you remember what they suggested you list your timeshare for?
Oh yeah, it was somewhere between $8,000 and $11,000. It's a one bedroom on the beach at Daytona, and they were going. I did reach out to Arda Rock, and they were going to send it over to Arda, and I never heard from them. So,
But
reached out.
you did talk to timeshares only,
Oh yes,
and
and I have.
and
Yeah, I have
right.
an email from them and everything. Hmm.
Yes, so I'm a licensed Florida real estate agent. I don't do anything with it, but you have to have a real estate license to suggest a listing price. And I could lose my license if I exaggerated the listing price. So Club Exploria told you they never take them back, but your prior guest, Bob, did
Yes,
have his taken back.
and I
And
sent that in. Yes, to them.
yes, and so there, it depends on, I don't know, I think he became quite a headache. But we have something now that you can go back to the Florida Attorney General, and I have the link to her patting herself on the back about
Okay.
protecting against listing companies, and say, not only did Club Exploria refer me to them, but they put on there that ARDA supports timeshares only. And I don't know if it's you or Bob, but the response from timeshares only is they work with Fidelity, who are real estate agents, but I believe they said they are immune from the law because they're not real estate agents.
Oh, that
Are
must have
you
been
telling
Bob.
me? Yeah, I mean, are you telling me you can act as a real estate agent without a license? It would be comparable to unauthorized practice of law. Now, Andrew, before we go over what your next steps are, and I'll just summarize briefly that you're a young couple with a 6-year-old, and Westgate sold you a 4-bedroom as a rental investment.
Yes.
Now Tom is saying that how do you get proof? If that's great, it says you can't misrepresent, But if he says that I bought in Florida and they told me I could rent, they'll show him his initials on the oral representation clause where he acknowledged that he did not rely on any claims made by a sales agent, which is why we want that disclosed at or prior to the sales presentation, not buried in 80 pages of fine print. So another past Westgate guest, and this was Candy and Tracy. I don't think you were on this show, but this is what Tracy said. And I mean, it's horrible. Her interest rate is 17%. And the sales agent said, oh, a Westgate mortgage, a Westgate loan is the same as a home mortgage. Mm-hmm. So before you make your first payment to Westgate, go to your bank and have them refinance it. Well, she went to Verve and she went to Farmers and Merchants Bank, and they said that it's, I'm sorry, but it's not a mortgage. And so we could do a personal loan, but that would be 13% or higher as well. But this is what she also said. Danny said not to worry about the HOA fees because most people rent out their weeks, send in referrals, which they will pay us to help offset fees. They said I could possibly even cover some of the mortgage payments, so it would be almost like getting the week for free. I tried to promote rentals on social media, and there was too much backlash. I have a report of 14 Westgate owners, 14 timeshare owners, not just Westgate, all active duty, that were pitched this rental, and as a result of that not being feasible, find their security clearances in jeopardy. Now, Ashley reached out just since the last show, and she was referred to TARDA. Her Westgate sales agent Clarence explained that the timeshare is in such demand that it could be rented out for a business profit. He also said he worked in the department that helps owners rent out their timeshare, and he could assist me in running a business. I have not been able to generate any funds to date. And she lists section 721.114 of the Florida state statute that states you may not misrepresent the availability of a resale or rental program or resale or rental opportunity. So there you have it. What good is it? Now, Andrew, tell us about how this has so deeply affected your life when you could not rent and you had no choice but to default.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to, Brooke, she sends her regards. She's not feeling so good today, so she's had a headache, and she said to let Irene and everyone know that she's thinking of you, and everything goes well during this episode.
Yeah.
So deeply rooted. Wow. I'll keep it as brief as I can with just giving some important context. So like when we signed on, and we were there for vacation with friends, and so just the actual meeting, as they call it, meeting, it took like 3-4 hours at least just to get anywhere with it. And did not realize what was going on until after the fact, when we had skipping about, like, let's see, that was September 2021, and then skipping about till like they said it was something about like 2 months afterwards that we could start getting reservations and start reserving and having them ready for the next year, because it said that it doesn't take effect until 2022 January. And of course, you know, that's past 10 days by far to even back out. So we're relying on what they're saying, and okay, yeah, we can use it as a rental for investment. And then when we started getting things going in November, towards the end, we started realizing, oh, well, we're getting everything against us now, after being told, oh yeah, you know, we're here for you, your family, your timeshare owner, and all this fancy talk to make you all feel good inside. part of the family, sort of just, it's just nasty. And then that's when we discovered that, okay, we're gotten all these fees in order to get anything reserved, and then, oh, they're not unlimited anymore. They're just, I mean, I could go on a list of just all the being tossed off the side, and like, oh yeah, everything we said basically wasn't true, but we told you it was true. Fast forward to, I can't remember when we made connection, Irene, but that's when we were stuck. Like, where do we go? And we couldn't even talk to Westgate, and we were told to stop talking with them, to stop making payments. And so as that time is going by, it's affecting Brooke's credit, and with me still in the service, it was affecting my reenlistment that was going to be in 2023. And so with all this piling on, and then we're seeing with our own personal business that we have going on, not able to get like loans, even business loan, because you have to have business credit. Well, we couldn't have that because we don't have, it's brand new business. And so all these things where I'm having to get all these loans under my credit because Brooks is held hostage because of the timeshare. So it's affecting us. And then because now I've got outstanding credit on my credit report, it's hard for us to even find a house, even rent where we're at now. We got out of just pure understanding with the housing management here. Oh, okay, so that's what this Westgate thing is showing. So okay, so we had to prove by a letter through the law firm that we were with that this was being investigated, that there was actual ongoing process, that wasn't just we were not wanting to pay or anything like that. It was legit fraud. And so like that's how it's really affecting us, where we're now in the state where we can't afford housing because, and now even rent, because we were in a town home where for just the rent it was just like $3,000. So trying to get out of that to find it where we're at now was even like just a cut in half. But where we couldn't even get that, and now like because of all these funds are having to go elsewhere in our lives, we can't afford other things. And with the going back to the intent with the timeshare was to use it as a means to get profit. So like this just kind of like a avalanche effect that's now hurting us, where we can't even, trying to get out of it is like worse than pulling teeth. It's like pulling out like rebar out of concrete, like reinforced concrete. It's near impossible without actually getting in and hammering and getting at the thing that's holding in this. If I'm making any analogy, it's kind of a silly, simple one, but that's what it feels like, at least for me, especially now with the security clearance, where that was a huge issue a year before my reenlistment. I was looking into even transferring from the Idaho Air National Guard down to the Utah Air National Guard because it was financially straining just to go up there, even quarterly. So 4 times a year to do my drill guard duties, to then, okay, let's get closer to transfer to Utah, which would then have to, context is I'd have to reclass because they don't have my current AFSC. So then that would take time. And so it was just like this financial burden and juggling all this, and then trying to find a place where we can actually financially feel stable enough to live alone and have the necessities on top of with the business that we have. So it's not just affected my security clearance, it's affected our way of life, trying to just get by, trying to provide for our daughter, and so that she has the things she needs for school, and as any 6-year-old needs. And with us, that's just like I have so much more, but it's just those are the highlights where it's just been
Well,
emotionally and financially and even physically just overbearing.
and the first time I heard from Brooke, she was just a mess because you were not able to rent, but I put together a list of lawsuits that had been filed against Westgate, and she did say that you were able to rent, correct?
Yeah, so that was you're talking about like right here in this current
Yes.
place. Yeah, because we had to show them, and I believe is you gave them that information, and then that was able to give them reason to allow us to rent, because at the beginning we weren't able to because of the outstanding the timeshare, the outstanding credit. So they needed proof that we were actually pursuing some sort of like there, we were defaulting, we were not paying because it was fraudulent. It was not in good faith as we were promised. And so that's where it's like other places we weren't able to because they flat out said no. And so this current property management was able to say, you know what, yeah, let's give us proof that there's work in the making to get, have a solution, a resolve to this outstanding credit. So yeah, it just
And the lawsuit that you were talking about in the law firm is Tom had said earlier that the bar to litigate. Well, you can't litigate because it's buried in the fine print that you agree to arbitration. One active duty service member sold not enough points for a family of 6, and were disputing a $12,000 loan. They lost in arbitration and were ordered to pay $66,000, over $55,000 for the resort's attorney's fees. And this is someone that had served active duty 12 years with the Navy with 4 kids. Dad was deployed. Now, there has to be a representative that must care that I have 14 and there's hundreds of active duty service members that find their security clearances in jeopardy that otherwise have an 800 score just because of a timeshare loan default. Now, the Steins versus Westgate is the lawsuit that Andrew is referring to. And our very first guest on Timeshare Solution and Surrender was Taya. Taya was Army National Guard for, I think it was 11 years. And then last June, she switched to the Army because she said the Army will pay for her law degree. So she went with me to appellate court. I was at the lower court when the Steins family sued Westgate, accusing them of violating the Military Lending Act. And what I've observed, and Sheila, you can comment on this, where the judges and they don't understand timeshare except for Judge Dalton, Judge Roy Dalton Jr., I believe, who the argument in the Military Lending Act is whether a timeshare mortgage is a mortgage or a transient stay or a residential stay. Because if it is a residential stay, it is exempt from the Military Lending Act because the Military Lending Act prohibits arbitration. Now, this is what Fannie Mae has to say. And Ashley, that I mentioned earlier, that she spent most of her complaint talking about how you mischaracterized my loan as a mortgage. It's not a mortgage. Well, that's what we're waiting for the appellate court to rule on when Taya and a former Westgate owner and I went to just a couple months ago to the oral arguments. We went all the way up to Atlanta, Georgia, Fannie Mae says a timeshare account should be treated as an installment debt, regardless of how it is reported on the credit report or other documentation. That is, even if it's reported as a mortgage loan. And then the National Credit Union Administration for covered borrowers. Covered borrowers is someone that is covered by the Military Lending Act. The final rule does not apply to 5 categories, including a residential mortgage transaction, which is any credit transaction secured by an interest in a dwelling. A dwelling secured transaction includes a transaction to finance a dwelling's purchase or initial construction, a refinance transaction, a home equity loan, or a line of credit, and a reverse mortgage. It does not include a timeshare interest. So one of the people in default is Katie Holloway, who works in titles. She was on our show last week. And Sheila, do you remember you made some comments about the judge when we were in Delaware at the Kirchner versus Wyndham lawsuit?
Yeah. They have no idea anything about timeshare. And he was like asking questions and everything, and he just didn't understand. So that couldn't be resolved. He would ask questions of the Wyndham attorneys, and just like a salesperson, those attorneys are like spot on. You're not going to fool them at all. They're going to tell you whatever they want and get away with it because the judges don't know.
Yeah, and that when we talk about foreclosure, there's judicial and non-judicial foreclosure. So, it gets confusing, but judicial foreclosure is a legal process, and it's a lengthy process. Non-judicial foreclosure, you receive first a notice of delinquency, second a notice of default, third, I believe an intent to lien or notification, and then notification of the sale of the property. And states have statutes. Florida does not have such a statute. So it's, this whole thing is so, and one of the judges said that some of the judges couldn't even agree whether it's a judicial or non-judicial foreclosure. So we have now, Andrew, your next steps. I found a senator in Utah that is on the Veterans Affairs Committee. Mm-hmm. And then there was a state representative on that committee, and I think 4 others. So what is important is to have Tom and you coordinating I'm going to reach out to Senator Tom Leek and try to make some sense with what's happening in this area. Now, to go back, why we started TARDA, and yeah, I know it was snarky of me to come up with Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability, TARDA, not ARDA. But I read something that made me so angry. Then when it was suggested that we form the 501c4, I did it. And what I read was at the ARDA there's ARDA and there's ARDA Rock, Resort Owners Coalition. ARDA was fined in 2010 for not calling donations voluntary. So now those donations, at least with my maintenance fee invoice, were buried. It says, do you want to pay your bill? In order to see that $7, I have to go to account history, and they raise $5 million a year. And I've asked at least 1,000 members, can you tell me what ARDA is? No one can tell me what ARDA is. So there's ARDA and there's ARDA ROC, Resort Owners Coalition, which purports to be supportive of consumers. So on the ARDA ROC website, it said that we are lobbying in 14 states, non-judicial foreclosure that provides strong support for consumers. Well, then someone wrote an article that was sent to me where it was posted on letterhead meeting minutes at an ARDA conference for industry. People that attended were from the industry, where Kenneth McKelvey, the chairman of ARDA ROC, said, the answer is judicial foreclosure, enforce the contract, and ruin the credit. These are the people. There is no voice at the consumer level. If you look at ARDA ROC's board of directors, they're all multimillionaires, and and some of the worst complaints we've had have come from Capital Resorts. 2 have been resolved, fortunately, and Kenneth McKelvey is an executive consultant with Capital Resorts. So what we want to do is,
now, if ARDA ROC is supposed to be for the consumer, then why would they send my complaint over to ARDA?
Exactly. Okay. Now, I want to go over, and again, this show isn't just for Timeshare members. We're going to send this link to state representatives and hope someone on their staff has an hour of popcorn time to watch us. So ARDA's formidable advocacy arm promotes and defends the vacation ownership industry. The key word is industry. Okay, now they say, I've heard them say over and over, timeshare is a highly regulated product. Well, maybe the product is regulated, but the process, anything goes. You have that license to lie clause. So here is the legislation that I followed. In 2015, a law was enacted in Florida making it more difficult to be released from a timeshare contract based on, quote, non-material error. Now, that's a whole barn door can be open on how do you define non-material. Non-material to who? To the developer or to Andrew or Tom or Sheila, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number 2. So I attended a legislative workshop in 2019. ARDA proposed a bill that they said, we want to protect these people that are getting ripped off by exit companies. And the courts just ordered Timeshare Compliance to pay Wyndham $16 million. So they wanted to protect from these predatory exit companies. So, and the bill was, they will have to wait 24 hours before signing an exit contract, an exit agreement. Well, the 2 exit attorneys that were there said, we have no problem with that, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if anybody needs 24 hours before signing a contract, it's the timeshare buyer.
Amen.
And so I was invited to that legislative workshop, and there was a breakfast and lunch with state representatives. And the first one raised his hand and said, do you mean, oh, and it also included that if you retained an attorney who practiced timeshare law, they could not accept a retainer. So the first representative said, they're all attorneys anyway. Do you mean to tell me if I'm disputing a timeshare contract, I can't retain an attorney? And then Representative Newton raised his hand and said, I had to file bankruptcy to get out of my timeshare.
Oh, I remember that one.
It went downhill from there.
Yeah.
And the attorney that was testifying, she was my attorney. And Sheila, Kenneth McKelvey at ARDA ROC testified, and he sat there under oath and said, every resort has a dissolution policy. Everyone. I've been in this business 30 years. Well, if he's been in this 30 years, he should know that Club Exploria does not have a responsible exit or a dissolution policy unless you beat them up. So then what did they do? They went to Nevada on the last day to submit a bill and proposed the same bill. And our advocate in Las Vegas said we need to have the timeshare members oppose this bill. So we opposed the bill unless the timeshare buyer was allowed 24 hours. The same year, 2019, is every 2 years, Shauna Ballock, state representative of Arizona, proposed a bill that would allow the 24-hour cooling off period, not to be confused with the rescission period after you sign. And here we have ARDA. Now, it passed 100% in the House. And at the Senate, ARDA lobbyist Don Isaacson, I was watching it on Zoom, his comment, but the bottom line, and you guys are going to go through the roof when you hear this, the bottom line is that the state should not step in to protect people who didn't bother to understand the nature of the deal.
Bunch of BS. That's
That's saying it mildly.
I have to, because I will get so heated.
Yeah.
And it's this whole thing in my mind is, yes, I get there's laws. I get there's things to protect parties, whatnot. But this, you only need, and I say this a lot because it makes sense. It's just common sense. You only need 2 brain cells to figure out this is just wrong. Timeshares and yeah, it may have worked in the past. Okay, cool. But the way they're going about it now, sorry, no, it's yeah.
Well, and there are 10 million people that own a timeshare, I think, and ARDA tried to say that 85% are happy. Dr. Amy Gregory at the University of Central Florida, I think, did a study showing that 85% are not happy. You can make statistics say whatever you want them to say.
Yeah, like polls.
But even if we give them the benefit of the doubt, if it's $1 billion a year sales, a lot of money. I mean, TARDA has no search engines. TARDA has no ad budgets, and we've heard from over 200 families. One week, 3 attorneys called me. One was a consumer protection attorney in California, the other a state enforcement attorney, the other a JAG officer. All 3 got duped by the same resort. What chance has the vulnerable? And Valerie wanted to be on the show today, Andrew. You talked to her over the telephone.
Yeah.
And she has been 23 years with the Air Force National Guard. And the sales agent told her, oh, well, you're eligible for 6% interest rate. You're military. Well, she remembered something about that. So, the consumer is 100% to blame. Sales agent 0. She didn't recall that you had to have the high interest rate loan before you go into the service. So the first person that appeared on Timeshare Solution or Surrender was Taya, and now Taya is a subclass of SCRA, the Service Members Civil Relief Act. She knew the law. She was eligible for the 6%, and Wyndham refused to acknowledge it. She sent them 74 emails since last October.
Wow.
Until we sent them the link to this interview, which they offered to try and sell it, which it's impossible to try and sell it if you have a loan outstanding. Now, okay, getting back to the anti-consumer legislation. Now, if there is a topic that is going to benefit the developer and the member, yes, ARDA's efforts have been helpful. I think a couple years ago it was about Puerto Rico wanting to slap a $300 exchange fee. But our next 3rd item on the agenda, so first we had the non-material error. The second was 24 hours so that you could consider signing a perpetual contract with no secondary market that's financed at 12 to 19.99% or higher if it's credit card. Third We remember Michael Flaskey, a CEO of Diamond Resorts, applauding North Carolina because timeshare sales agents no longer are required to have real estate license. What kind of consumer protection is that? Okay.
None.
Now, number 4, and this is even worse. Don't listen before going to bed at night. As reported by the Sun Sentinel, artists spent over $1.1 million from 2006 to 2010 retaining Washington, D.C. lobbyists to argue against greater timeshare truth and lending disclosure. To quote, to oppose such things as mortgage reform legislation, including the expansion of truth and lending requirements in timeshare buyers. Okay, now, I want to go back. I forgot to add Senator Michelle Ungenti-Rita's comments to the bottom line is the state should not step in to protect people who don't bother to understand the nature of the deal. It's a good thing I didn't have any hammers by my computer when I was watching this meeting, because she raised her hand and said, these people are adults. There was a meeting of the mind, and they signed a contract. They should take responsibility. So I looked her up, and this is a quote from the Capital Times. They showed her pictured in a deposition. Senator Ungenti-Rita laid on a bar for body shots, having the lobbyist and another woman at the bar drink alcohol out of her belly button, lick salt from her stomach, and suck a lime from her mouth. The woman said Ungenti-Rita confirmed the body shots in her own sworn deposition, but said the woman asked her to do them. And, this is a family-friendly show, so I won't go into the sexting that also was part of this deposition. So, it's like somebody, you can
Will
imagine.
you text me later?
So somebody has to get this. Now, Judge Dalton in the Orlando District Court, he closed the hearing out by saying that Steins versus Westgate, when I check out of a timeshare, I can't leave my underwear and toothbrush. So to say that a timeshare mortgage is the same, a loan is the same as a residential mortgage. Okay, your grandmother's timeshares, Sheila and I, you've owned them, where we own week 23 in the Ozarks, and you had to check in or exchange it. Unit 56 or something, where you could see, feel, and touch it. You might be able to argue that's real estate. But then
I own week 17.
Yeah, and now, Andrew, you owned a floating week. So now the definition of residential mortgage becomes a little bit murkier. But Diamond Resorts, they market non-deeded right to use points. So I was corrected on this show, Tom, that I understand that Wyndham's points are deeded. Do you know?
Yes, that is true. But a set of deeded points, and I think this is the basis of the Kirshner lawsuit, set of deeded points should be that owner's points to use as they see fit.
Yes.
Which would include renting them within the confines of the amount of points that I have. And I think that's the one discrepancy. Yes, when you get your contract for your timeshare time, my 1,000,000 points at Bonnet Creek have a building and floor number and actual room numbers on it. But I don't have access to those room numbers at a certain time. It's just merely that each room is attached to a certain volume of points, and that little tiny chunk is in my name. but they will tell you flat out that the 1.4 million points that I have in Wyndham Timeshare, I can only use it according to their usage rules, which eliminates it from being real estate. So real estate is something that I can use as I see fit within the confines of the criminal law.
Well, it eliminates it because it said you own this amount and that square at this time, but you can't go and book that time.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Somebody else could ahead of you.
That's it.
Okay.
Well,
I
and
got
a reason that you're assigned to a week, even though it doesn't guarantee you that week, was to prevent developers from selling more than 52 weeks in a year.
Which is the basis of the Kirshner lawsuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. It could clarify a few things. But yeah, if that belongs to you, if it's real estate, you should be able to use it. I should be able to put whoever I want. If I own a business and want to put a good customer in that room for a week as a thank you for business, I should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
so.
I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to, my neighbor used to go, and what they gave me paid for my maintenance fee. But a few years ago, there was trouble when they got there, even though I said my sister is coming. I didn't say I rented it out or anything. I said it was my sister, and they didn't want to let her in there. And I got on that phone and I said, you better let her in there. But I think they changed that recently where you can't rent them anymore.
Well, Blue Green, there's a lawsuit filed by a former Blue Green sales agent where she actually had recordings and she had the name of the entities that sales agents would tell people to contact. Tom, I believe you were told to, I think it was 3 letters, rent points. There was
Points Renters LLC.
Points Renters LLC. Your sales agent actually gave
a list up there.
Well, the file's sitting right here.
So Blue Green, the worst for Blue Green was Ashley. And I don't care if I tell this story 100 times, because if we have a lawmaker or a staffer willing to listen to this, where she's a single mom with, and her 5-year-old has had surgery every year of his life. He has 12 doctors, and grandpa died. So grandma said, you want these points? Well, his condition could worsen. So what happens if I can't use it? Blue Green said, no problem, we'll take it back. She had she has to have her family and friends help her with maintenance fees because it's so hard just to travel with the little guy. And so one of the relatives canceled, and she posted it on Blue Green Marketplace. Somebody sent her a private message saying, I want to test the Venmo. I'm going to send you $5. And she did. And the response was, I knew this was a scam. And before she knew it, she got a cease and desist letter from Blue Green just a couple of weeks later. And the only names that they could provide were 2 friends and 3 family members, including her grandma. So she got disgusted and said, okay, take them back. And they said, oh, we've changed it. Now we're going to charge you $8,165, 1.5 years maintenance fees. Her grandparents paid over $100,000 over 20 years, accumulating more and more points. You know what that's like, Tom?
Yes.
Upsell, upsell, upsell.
Yes.
And so some people have called it an inventory grab. You end up with more points now than you can use, and a lot of people just can't afford it. And so they just take that 100,000 back, no problem. And she had some big cedar weeks that the sales agent told me that, those weeks would go like that, is in a shark feeding frenzy when they hit the floor, just to recycle it like a hamster wheel of points and weeks. So, it's, again, I want to emphasize the 3 things that one of them I forgot to mention, so I'm glad I looked back. The first, we've got it down. The oral representation clause should be disclosed at or prior to the sales presentation. If you see a magazine ad, even if it's in fine print on the TV, you can't see it, disclosing this is a solicitation. especially since existing members are always told it's not a sales session. We're just here, new things have happened, new things with the program we want to talk to you about. The second thing, having access to the booking site before the contract cancellation period should start the day the buyer has access to the booking site. So if you were promised a week in Hawaii for a family of 6 with 2,500 points when it costs 8,500 points, there's nothing in the contract to protect you. The rescission period doesn't protect you. The third is what really upsets me, and that is the recorded closing. In 2016 and 2017, over 1,000 Diamond members complained to just the Arizona Attorney General. And I got a call, I still remember her name, Maya, from Diamond's PR firm in Beverly Hills. Irene, we're going to go beyond the assurance of discontinuance. We're going to record the sales session. And I said, what a perfect entrapment. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, my prophecy came true. Don't say anything about being able to rent, because I have, in the case of one Capital Resorts member, we have someone on our team that will rent for you. She's a single mom, a nurse. And I can't afford even the $4,000 down payment. No, we'll rent those out. Within a month or two, you'll have that down payment covered. You can pay off your loan in 1 or 2 years. They did not tell her she worked for another company, had a $1,000 upfront fee, and charged an additional $800 to take out 8 ads. And don't say anything when you go to the closing, because that's just about signing the papers anyway. So you don't say anything, and then when you complain, if this was important to you, it should have been on the recorded closing.
Now, did anybody there have a salesman that said don't say anything at the closing? Oh, did you?
Yep.
See, that's something new, that because I didn't have that.
It was verbatim what Irene just said.
Yeah,
that's exactly the words. He leaned over and he said, "Don't say anything now about this."
I mean, yeah, our agent, I don't know, he's probably someone random person off the street, who knows, but
yeah.
like he was very like friendly and buddy with us. He's like, oh yeah, like just let like me and my wife, we do this all the time. It's like, we gotta keep this hush because just formalities or all that stuff, just the closing, so it can go smoothly, so this you can get going as soon as possible, blah blah blah. And then like, okay, can't get a hold of him, like he was so like, oh yeah, we can even, let me know when you guys are going to come over, we can go out and do some stuff together, and go on family dates or whatever, it's like, okay, yeah. One thing I did want to mention, just so that it's recorded, is Irene, you mentioned about the arbitration. So this is one thing when I was going through the law firm there in Florida, is with the documents I still had that they gave us with the briefcase and all the, here's your signed documents, that arbitration was not in there. And so I told the lawyers, the assistants, all of them, it's like, I do not have it here. So they had to actually reach out to Westgate. Westgate had it. They actually had it. It wasn't an original copy that was, maybe it was faxed, excuse me, but, and I told them, and it's like, swear to God, hand on the Bible, oath of everything possible that we can do as humans, I never saw that once.
Well, and we have 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that Westgate, that lawsuit was filed on September 2nd, a couple of years ago, effective February 1, on the WOW, World of Westgate Benefits. They slipped in an arbitration clause where you could not exit your benefit page without accepting arbitration. Yeah. So,
and
Mark,
if I had seen that, real quick, if I had seen that, I would never gone with it, but it wasn't there, other than maybe they copy pasted my initials.
Another great show, Irene.
That's what I think sometimes.
get on out of here. Another great and
Yeah.
amazing show. It looks like you're doing the work of that hero of Mr. Tom behind him and everything. You're doing that kind of work of like the great John Wayne and everything. Because I did see there. You're kind of like being the John Wayne of the timeshare system and all along. So definitely, I think Tom would agree with me that you're doing that work much the way that John Wayne would have done if he was still around and everything along those lines. So just
No,
had to-
Brooke, we hope she's feeling better.
Yes,
Oh, no,
our
thank you.
regards to Brooke.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mark, for taking care of us today.
Yes,
No
thank you
problem.
all very
Thanks,
much.
Mark.
Yep. Y'all take it easy. So we can
All right,
get
take
on
care.
that.
Bye-bye.
Bye.